Hello, my name is Megan Davis, and I am presenting on behalf of Group 3, which also includes Nancy Oy and Mark Anderson. We worked together to study the dataset that included San Francisco Public Library circulation data from the years 2003 to 2016. To start off the presentation, I'm going to give you a little bit of history behind the San Francisco Public Library. So, as the prospects of gold whetted the interests of many entrepreneurs, Midwestern farmers, immigrants, and small business owners looking to start a new life, it was obvious that by 1850, public resources in San Francisco were seriously lacking. The population by then had hit 21,000 people, and while there were several private and subscription-based libraries, it became apparent that the city needed its first free public library. So, in 1877, prominent residents of the city held a conference to discuss how a free public library could come to fruition. The organizers of this committee sent letters to known public libraries requesting advice and guidance on how to bring about their vision. With the evidence of roughly 200 replies from all across America and Europe, the committee found that the library cannot be sustained by private donations, but the people of the city would be willing to contribute to a free public library with a small tax. There was a senator at this meeting who wrote an act that was signed into law a year later in 1878 by California's 13th governor. The Rogers Free Libraries Act gave all incorporated cities the ability or the choice to levy a tax up to 1/10 of a penny on the dollar to support their local free library. But despite this, it took about 2 decades for the Free Library's Board of Trustees and their progressive mayor at the time to really achieve full endowment from the rightful tax benefits and a large grant from the Carnegie Foundation. So, after a tumultuous financial journey during the beginning of this library, in 1906, a devastating earthquake and subsequent fire that razed a good portion of the city also destroyed City Hall, which at the time housed the main library. During this tragedy, 80% of the collection was lost, which was an estimated 140,000 volumes. With a lot of perseverance, help from the community, expertise of the staff members of the library, the main library got its own building and opened in 1917. It had a 1 million title capacity with several additional rooms for extra facilities and training. After it reached capacity, plans had been made to open a new facility, and by 1996, the city eventually got its own brand new main library that takes up an entire city block. Additionally, they were able to open up 27 additional branches for the city, and 130 years after the first free public library was founded, the San Francisco Main Library was awarded the honor of Library of the Year in 2018. Our dataset consisted of over 420,000 records, each with 15 variables. So, for example, some of those variables included age range of the patron type, notification preference, total renewals, total checkouts, the district within registration, and the year registered. Keeping in mind that this was only the records kept starting with registrations beginning in 2003 to 2016. So our first visualization is a sample of some of the 27 branches, including the main library. So what we did is we compared user types by branch with the San Francisco planning demographics. So as you can see, in the blue, we have our library data corresponding with the orange in this bar chart with district demographic data. So for our youth type, we needed to combine juvenile, which was ages 0 to 12, and YA, which was ages 13 to 18, with our library data to best coincide with the district demographic, which consisted of youths aged 0 to 17. So here you can see there's some discrepancy within user types. Let's look at Richmond. User types by branch. So if we zoom in, we can see this sample for Richmond. Column A is San Francisco Public Library's percentage of users that are youth. Column B is San Francisco Planning's percentage of youth. Column C is the percentage of adults. D is the percentage of adults living in the district. E, percentage of seniors, and F, percentage of seniors in the district. As you can see, there are some discrepancies. Pretty consistently, for all branches, the amount of adults with library cards who also lived in the district were the same. But as we can see for Richmond, the number of juveniles or youths there were a greater number of participation within this demographic than there were that actually lived in the city. Conversely, you can see in column E that the percentage of seniors in the district who participated in the library was lower than those who lived in that city. In our next visualization, I'm going to touch briefly on a hypothesis that we had. We looked in to see that for branches that had a high juvenile or youth patronage, did they have a greater amount of teacher cards registered in that branch? Teacher cards can check out more materials and for longer amounts of times and have more privileges. However, as you can see in this visualization, that there are in some districts a higher number of cards for a large amount of youths, but for the most part, we found no correlation. Moving on, we're going to look at a story that we created using Tableau. For the first portion of our story, we have a map of San Francisco. As you can see, there are all the location of the branches. If you hover over a dot, these are all color-coded by the way, you can get the name of the library, its location, its phone number, and its neighborhood. There are 27 branches, and this little dot is the main library. As you can see, there are really no surrounding libraries to the main library. It's a large institution. Next, we have population compared to library branches. So, the numbers on the screen correspond to zip codes, and the color for the map corresponds to density of population. So if we hover over the lighter areas, you can see that there are 13,000 people in this zip code, and they have one library. In the denser reds, you can see 134,000 people in this population have two libraries. This data is consistent for all zip codes. Next, we have a map that is registration by year. As you can see, the trend goes up steadily from 2006 to 2010, in 2011, and from 2012 to 2015, it spikes up greatly. And the highest number of registration is 69,000, and this is in the year 2003, when the study first commenced. Finally, we have a tree map for registration by library. As you can see, the largest amount of registration is the main library. The color code is ombre, and as you can see, with it density it's darker, with less density it gets lighter and lighter. These last few tiny boxes at the bottom are bookmobiles and unknown. Finally, to recap, our most pertinent findings were that population density did positively correlate with a higher amount of libraries. Teacher card percentage had no correlation to the amount of juvenile patronage. And finally, the main library has by far the highest amount of registration in the city. Thank you for watching, everybody.